Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Woody's Workshop. I know it's been a little while since I've uploaded a video. I've been super busy. I've been selling vehicles, buying new vehicles, cleaning up my garage. You can kind of see it back there. I've been trying to get a little more organized, get myself some space. I sold my truck and I sold my 335 diesel, and I downsized to a single E70 diesel. This car is super clean. The only downside to it is it's bone stock. It has a leather dash, Napa leather, adaptive drive. I added in this little touchscreen unit. It's got cold weather package, hi-fi audio. It's a pretty optioned out E70, but it's bone stock. Nobody wants a bone stock M57. It's, nobody wants that. It's boring. No, nobody wants that. So I bought a bunch of parts. I got my co-workers in the shop. Jenny, got Big Jen and Zoe, and we've got a bunch of parts. You want to see what we got? We got oil feed lines. We got valve cover gaskets. We got glow plugs, glow plug modules, harmonic balancers. I chose to buy the downpipe from 1320 Performance on eBay. It's a cheaper downpipe. It's still stainless, but it's intended for use on a 335 diesel. It has the 2-bolt flange instead of a slip-on flange like on the E70. So because of that, I'm gonna be making my own mid pipe. A lot of people like to purchase, there's an aftermarket company that makes a mid pipe, but it's $400 and it's a 2-bolt flange with 245 mandrel bends and a 3-inch, band clamp for $400. So I'm not the type of person that can, I don't know, I'm not going to spend $400 on like a $100 pipe. So I chose to make my own. I got my welder, I got my bottle, everything. I've kind of set up a little workshop space over here. Nothing too crazy, but enough to do a little bit of, DIY fab work. I'm just going to go ahead and show you what it takes to remove the DPF and what that process entails. It's not super difficult, but it's not easy either. I mean, if you're not a professional, if you're just a weekend mechanic, you're probably going to be cursing up you're going to be cursing up a storm a little bit, probably. Maybe not. Maybe you're better than maybe you're better than I think. But hey, I know if I didn't do this for a living, it would be hard. I think it would be hard. So with that being said, let's get right into it. As always, if you find this helpful, please consider subscribing to the channel. I think we broke 500 subscribers, which I'm like really super surprised about. So let's just get right into it. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to raise this hood up. I'm a tall guy, hits my head a lot. It gives you a lot better visibility. If you have something like this, this is a BMW tool, or you can make your own out of PVC pipe. All it is just the end of a hood strut rod on a little hollow piece of PVC, and you just slide it, you pop the struts off, slide this over, and it's just a spacer to get the hood higher and get it out of your way. There's a zip tie on here you gotta cut off. You don't have to do this, but I like to do it because it just gives you a lot more visibility when you're trying to work on everything. This is habit, I guess. There's just these little springs. You take a small screwdriver, go underneath them, pull the board, and just pops right off. You'll see this gives you a lot more. You can see that's opening it way up. slide this on, pop it on there just like that. You see now I have all this space to not hit my head, and you can see the lighting's much better. What we're gonna do now is we need to take all this cowling off. All you need to do this is a 13 millimeter. These are quarter turn fasteners. You can just pop those off and slide up out of there. Next, you'll need to remove your microfilter housing, which is this guy right here. And you're gonna need an extension on your 13 millimeter for this. You unplug your little AUC sensor here. You got one in the front, and then two in the back. That's not a sexual joke, by the way. Comes out like that. There you go. Now we still have to take all these off. Now on an E70 diesel, if your cowl panels here are not broken, you need to take extra precaution to not break them. You also need to pay attention to the seal between this middle piece and the two side pieces. If this seal here if there's not butyl tape, or if there's nothing sealing that, or it's cracked or what have you, water will run down your windshield over your wiper cowl, and it'll actually seep through the seam on these two, and it'll drip directly down on your injector. And what will happen is that water will get down in between the cylinder head and the injector, and it'll rust and corrode the injector into the cylinder head, and it'll make it a royal pain in the ass for whoever has to take that injector out. Now, mind you, you may think, oh, well, I'm never going to have to do that. Well, if you have to do the valve cover, you have to take the injectors out. So this is really important. And if it's broken, fix it. You'll thank yourself later. With that being said, to remove these is just a couple T25s and there's two 10 millimeters on both sides of the side panels, and then a couple T25s across the back. And this is that sealing area that I was talking about. This vehicle actually has an updated centerpiece section, which has these little rubber flaps on it to prevent exactly what I described earlier. But sometimes they won't have this. If you have the originals, and they'll just be butyl tape or like really black sticky tape here. If your original is in good condition, it's okay to reseal it with that. You don't have to have this. But if you plan on doing that, it's a good idea to clean it off and go ahead and just put a fresh layer of butyl on there. All right, so now we're going to want to take these cross braces off on both sides. These are 16 millimeter bolts, and you just zip them off. Install them the same way you took them off. Don't flip them around, don't do anything crazy. So now we got all that out of the way. That's going to give us better access to all the stuff down here near the exhaust manifold that we're going to have to be messing with. I'm going to take this off just to get it out of my way. I'm going to go ahead and pull the air box off. It's pretty simple. Just disconnect the mass airflow sensor here, 2 tabs on each side, squeeze in like this, boom, just take that off. This section right here, you just go like that, pop it off just like that, give it a wiggle, jiggle, pull it off. You need a flathead screwdriver. That for the hose clamp. Loosen up the hose clamp. And you should be able to pop up the entire airbox. There you go. There it is. There's your whole intake air filter box with the map still on it. Set that to the side. All right, so now that we've got the cowl panels off, the strut braces, we removed the intake air filter. What I like to do is at the top here, this is very hard to get on camera. See if I can get it to focus. There we go. You can kind of see that black hose right there with the red lettering on it. It goes to these, there's actually two there. It's really hard to see, but it goes to this little metal pipe right there, right where the end of my finger is. Now that is your diesel particulate filter pressure sensor, and what it does is it measures the pre and post pressures of the particulate filter to determine when regeneration is necessary or when service is necessary. So we're not going to be using that anymore. So to make life easy on yourself, sometimes those can be a real pain in the ass to get off. What I recommend is just taking a new razor blade and just going down there and just slicing it and pulling them off. Also, while we're down here on the side of the engine, there are a couple sensors that need to be unplugged. There's a EGT sensor right there, and I believe there is a couple other sensors here on the side. They're pretty hard to see. Some of them kind of come up in here in this mess of shit. So just unplug all the sensors pretty much that are on the DPF, and once that's done, the majority of the job from that point on will be done underneath the vehicle. So once I get all that stuff unplugged, I'm going to go ahead and raise the vehicle, pull the wheels off, pull the underbody panels off, and get ready to lower the subframe in order to remove the DPF. Okay, so I removed a couple additional things. These aren't things that you would really necessarily need to remove. I removed these just for the intention of getting a better camera shot, so you can kind of see what's necessary. There is those lines for the pressure sensor for the DPF. You can see there's two of them. They just slide onto that metal pipe. Just slit them and pull them right off. This connector right here, actually mine's not clipped in where it's supposed to be, but this is for your O2 sensor. I'm gonna try and get these. So there is one of your EGT sensors that will have to be unplugged. It runs up here, clips in somewhere up in here, I don't know. And then your other one is right there. You can see the it's not this one, it's the other one that's on this with this blue zip tie. So you have to cut that zip tie, and that runs up here and plugs in up here. So I know it's not the best video of that, but hopefully that's that's about as clear as I could show it. I mean, you should be able to just look down there and see which ones are on the DPF and make sure they're unplugged, and then we'll be able to go down underneath and start actually taking things apart. Here are the 4 connectors that I've unplugged. You have your O2 sensor and a couple EGT sensors. These two connectors right here as well. And you can see down there, got my lines off my, get it to focus. There you go. You see I got my lines off my pressure sensor there. So now we're ready to take the motor mount bolts off and set up our cross brace and go ahead and lift the engine up a little bit in preparation for lowering the subframe. Alright, so I'm on the motor mount on the driver's side. You're going to need a long 3/8 or 1/2 inch extension with a swivel and a 18mm socket. And these can be pretty tight. You can hear this one's a little cranky. It's been a little while, I guess. So my coworker and I have we had a little bit of an issue with the exhaust.
You can tell I'm kind of out of breath. The band clamp that holds on the middle section here, or the connecting piece from the downpipe to your SCR cat here. This vehicle's got a little bit of rust on the hardware, and as you can see, I got into a fight with this clamp and I won, but yeah, I mean, that bolt did not want to let go. So I had to do some work on that, but it broke away, no problems. Unfortunately, I've also got a little bit of a rust problem on the hardware here. You can see that's supposed to be a nut, and it is, I don't know what that is, but it's not a nut. So I don't really have the patience to mess with that right now, so I'm just gonna scoot it back. I had to unplug. I kind of missed this part because I got a little sidetracked messing with that. You have to unplug this, unplug this EGT sensor. It goes up on this side of the transmission. You have to disconnect your urea feed line. It connects to your metering valve here. There's just two little squeeze tabs on each side. You just squeeze it and pop it off. There's an electrical connector that goes on the metering valve. And then you have both your NOx sensors, your NOx sensors. You have this one here, which goes over here, right here. And it runs across your transfer case cross member and bolts to this bracket right here. You're gonna have to take that off. And then also on the back here, you have your pre-SCR cat. This is your SCR cat. You have your that was your pre, and this is your post NOx sensor. You're gonna have to take this one off as well. I'm planning on keeping this stuff just in case if some regulations or whatever change, anything changes, and I for some reason need to put this back to emissions compliant, I'll be able to do so. But if you don't really care about that, you can just cut this stuff and kind of tuck it away. But obviously that would kind of render it useless down the road. So I will be taking my time to take this stuff apart and saving it and putting it away. But unfortunately, due to this deal here, me not wanting to mess with this, I am going to just go ahead and cut it at the back section. Like I said, I'm going to be building my own mid pipe anyway, so I would rather do that and mess with this another day. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, now we're gonna cut it. Unfortunately, I don't have a Sawzall, so we're just gonna use a little tiny cutoff wheel. This might take a minute. Here's the SCR cat. I did have to cut it out. I just cut it right here after this weld. That way I can use a band clamp on the 3-inch section when I make my own pipe. But that's what I was saying. I mean, it's not that complicated. I mean, it's just going to be a 2-bolt flange, a 45, and then straight to a band clamp. So I can't really justify $400 for that. But if you don't have access to a welder, or you just don't feel like it, or it's worth $400 to you, you can just go ahead and buy one. But this is what I was talking about. I know I did this kind of off camera, but this normally doesn't happen, and it actually broke off pretty easily. All things considered, it kind of just snapped off. I mean, whatever. I mean, it is what it is. I can always replace this. Just cut a little tack weld and throw a new clamp on there. This is your metering valve. This is what actually injects the urea into your exhaust to reduce your nitrous oxide emissions. And there's actually
I don't know what you would refer to it as. There's like a little turbine looking thing in here. It's this little piece actually in here, and it's like a diffuser. It's supposed to or disperse the urea throughout the exhaust like more accurately. Also, if you didn't want to actually replace this and buy a whole mid pipe, you can actually cut this open along the weld, and you can remove all the cap material out and then just MIG weld it shut. I have done that before. But yeah, as far as removing this pipe, it was just this clamp here. I think it's a 15 or a 16, I forget. You have this connector here for your EGT, downstream EGT. This is your front knock sensor. There's two 13s that mount right here on the side of the transmission. And then there was one more knock sensor, I believe, that goes right here. And it comes out through the heat shields, like towards the center section of the drive shaft. I just left it hang, and I'm going to deal with that here in a minute. But now at least we've got all this out of the way. I've got the wheels off. I took off the panels here that cover the pretty much all the suspension components, goes over the top of the axle. It's just plastic covers. They're just held on with 8mm and little push pins like this. There's two halves. There's a bottom and a top half. I took both halves off. I'm going to be taking off pretty much, here's some of those panels. I'm going to be taking off pretty much maybe a little bit of unnecessary stuff, just because I don't want to have to fight this. I usually do this type of stuff on a lift, so this is my first time doing it on the ground. So yeah, I've got my engine brace up here, going across the two strut towers to the pull hook here. I've got it raised up a little bit. I also realize now that I forgot to show the passenger side motor mount nut. It's an 18mm. I get it from the bottom with a ratcheting 18mm wrench. I've got that off now, and I've got the engine, the full weight of the engine supported here with this cross brace. So I'm gonna go ahead and set up the camera underneath and start to lower the subframe down. I did not take off the steering linkage. I don't think it's gonna be necessary. We'll see. Hopefully it's not. But if it is, I mean, it's not a big deal. So I'm gonna go ahead and probably lower this down. It's not gonna move too far just because the suspension is still holding it up. I might have to break a couple of the suspension components loose. Yeah, see, it's actually hung up on the pins. So I'm gonna go ahead and lower it just a little bit, like right there. And then I gotta get a pry bar to pry the subframe off of the body of the car. So I should be able to get up in here and let me see. Need to get a better spot to pry. There we go. Yeah, this subframe's a little bit hung up. A lot of times you won't have to do this, but these pins are a little snug. Also, as you're lowering this down, you will need to make sure it's in the lens here. This transmission cooler right here, as you lower it down, there'll be two 10mm on the top of this. You use a ratcheting 10mm and loosen these as you're lowering it. And if you can't get the subframe low enough for you to get the DPF out, go ahead and try and loosen your thrust rod bushings, loosen your lower control arm, and also you can pull your steering shaft off if you need to. I'm gonna try not to do that, but regardless, you can loosen all those components, and that'll give you a lot more sag with the subframe. But since I'm gonna be down here underneath it, I'm gonna try and get away with the absolute minimum. So let's see. Let's see here how much I can get. Pull it down just a little bit. So So that's about it. Not much, just a couple inches really. Yeah, it's gonna be a pretty snug one. But here you can see the 10 millimeter. Sorry, the light's right there. You see that 10 millimeter right there. The other one's right over there, and that'll allow the front to come down a little bit further. So now that we have the subframe dropped a little bit, before I go ahead and we got to take the motor mount bracket off. And before we do that, what I like to do is I like to remove the low pressure EGR cooler. You'll see this is mounted on the passenger side of the DPF. It's not too bad. You have a vacuum line here, electrical connector, a 13 here, a 13 there, and then a 13 above as well. And you can get this up top if it's easier for you. Once you get those off, there are on the actual EGR cooler, sorry, I'm hitting the microphone there. So let's see if I can get it to zoom on that. So there we go. On the actual EGR cooler, there is a 13 on the bottom and then a 13 on the top. And you also have these two coolant lines. We'll be looping these out since we're no longer going to have this EGR cooler here. So you just want to cut these clamps, pull these hoses off. You're going to get a little bit of coolant going, so you probably want to throw a drain pan under it. And then there are, let me scooch back here. There are right here, there are two E10s that hold it actually onto the DPF. So once you get that stuff off, you can completely remove that, and then we can go on to actually, let me scoot back, removing this motor mount bracket, which is pretty tricky because there is a bolt between the bracket and the actual DPF. So let's just go ahead and get that low pressure EGR off, and then we can deal with this. I'm working on getting this DPF off, and this is probably one of the most tricky parts of this job. You can see on the left hand side, that is that's the particulate filter flange. On the right hand side is the exhaust housing, and you can see I've already got the V-band clamp off, and I've got it kind of offset. I've got the DPF kind of cocked in a way that allows me to get, I mean, this is very hard to see, but you have to get an extension with a swivel and a 16 millimeter socket between the DPF and the motor mount bracket in order to get that motor mount bolt that's hidden underneath. The only way you're going to get to this is, unless somebody has like some type of magic way of getting to it that I'm unaware of, the only way that I know to get to it is to actually loosen the DPF, move it kind of up and out of the way, and then force your extension underneath it. And then you'll be able to loosen that bolt, get the motor mount bracket out of the way, and then you'll be able to get the DPF down. There is a bracket that goes here. It has two E10s that bolt on the side of the block. You can see my bolt actually broke off inside the DPF. And then there is one 13 that goes all the way up there. And I've already got those out. So you can see my EGR cooler's out. It's gone. It's kind of pushed down to the side. If you can see it over there, I've kind of pushed it back. I'm going to deal with the coolant hoses once I get it apart. But there you can see my extension and where it has to be. I mean, there's a bolt up under there, and it's kind of tricky. So I'm going to go ahead and get that out, pull the motor mount bracket out, and then work on getting this DPF out of here. All right, so this is where I'm at. It's taken a little bit of persuasion to get to this point. I've actually had to kind of massage the heat shield just a little bit, you know, because the tubes for the pressure sensor kind of dig in. I'm pretty close. I definitely could have used a little more space here with the subframe. I've been having to kind of pull it down, but I think I'm almost there. Just got a little bit more, so let's see if I can't get it out. This doesn't help either. I've tried to get these lines off, but the hardware is a little rusty, and I don't want to tear the mounting points There we go. I just gotta get off of this line. Getting hung up on this line right here. I can get up under there. Get off of that. Maybe get my pry bar stuck. See if I can't bend this down just a little bit. There we go. There we go. That let a lot of tension off. There we go. Oh, baby. And there she is. Yeah. Probably like, I don't know, 40 pounds or something. Not light. So make sure you got a good hand on it when you let it go. You don't want to be like directly under it, or you'll probably get a black eye. But yeah, there it is. And look at all that space. Man, that is a beautiful sight. Getting rid of that piece of shit. Oh, all right. Woo. Oh, and with that, I'm gonna call it a night. I will be back. Oh, I got a crazy hairdo. I'll be back in the morning. Gotta make a block off plate for the low pressure EGR. And I've gotta make the exhaust. So I don't know, I think I'll probably put that into this video. I'm not quite sure yet. Yeah, so catch you in the morning. All right, so it's the next morning. I got a little bit ahead of myself. I kind of didn't start filming until just now, but now that I got everything apart, I wanted to kind of give you a visual on what the motor mount situation is, the motor mount bolt situation. So when the DPF is in the car, it sits over the top of the motor mount like that. So you cannot access this bolt here without moving this out of the way and wedging it to the side like I was showing. You can see here, there is a little notch, but I mean, it's pretty much not accessible without moving the particulate filter. So I mean, it's poor design, poor engineering, but it is what it is. Luckily, when you're replacing this and you're putting just a down pipe with no filter, it makes this much easier if you ever have to get to it again. I've also got the low pressure GR out. I made this block off plate. Essentially, I just used this as a template and just held it onto some aluminum, traced it out, and just cut it out on the bandsaw, and then just ran it across a belt sander to make sure it was nice and flat. I'm trying to think what else have I accomplished this morning. I've also going underneath. You can see right there is the coolant line, feed and return line for the low pressure EGR right there. And what I've done is I used the lower line right here. This is the original line for this section, and you cut it, trim a little bit off, and then you connect it to the feed side, and then just throw a hose clamp on it. We're looping that out since we're no longer using it, and then you can just tuck the electrical connector away, zip tie it up somewhere, because we're not going to be needing that anymore. So at this point, I think I'm gonna start. Oh. Yeah, so I think at this point I am gonna start probably making the exhaust. I don't know, we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna throw on this block off plate and kind of start fitting things up there, figure out what I gotta weld, and pretty much just checking the fitment, and then I'll be starting on making the exhaust. So I got my welder set up, got it back purged, just got a little section. Like I said, it's been a while, so hopefully I still do a decent job, we'll see. But I'm gonna do this little section first and see how things go. not too bad. Can't complain about that. Let's see. Oh yeah, look at that. I'm not a pro, but hey, doesn't look half bad. Can't complain. Let's keep on moving. Get this thing welded up. All right, so here's my mid pipe that I just made. You can see I had to angle it a little bit coming out of the downpipe. Since I am using that eBay downpipe, I didn't really have the opportunity to make it exactly flush and everything. So I did have to put a little angle off it just to space out this section of the pipe correctly. And then I had to put a little kink in it here to get around the transfer case bracket. And then it's just two 45s. And you know, I don't know, it's been a little while, so I haven't welded that recently, but you know, it came out all right. Pipe got a little scratched up, but good enough for what I need to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and install this thing, and I'll show you the fitment and how it looks once it's installed. Okay, so here it is installed in the vehicle. The fitment's pretty good. I've got it secured to the factory exhaust with just a 3-inch band clamp. I'm probably going to end up doing the whole thing in stainless eventually and doing a muffler delete, but for right now this is as far as I'm going to go. So yeah, that pretty much shows you in detail what's required to remove the DPF and how to install a downpipe and a mid pipe. So as always, if you found this video helpful, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching. See you next time.